again, everybody, leave those comments and questions. I'm monitoring, but Jason's done his homework. Not that he had to do too much because he's pretty much got this locked up in his head concerning Florida State's past, starting with the dynasty era. So we've locked in on 1987 being that stretch drive, that beginning of the top four finishes. Sorry, Florida State fans, top four finishes, of course, for 15 consecutive years. But what that would have looked like in terms of applying those seasons to a playoff.
Right, because so for the last 8 seasons, we've obviously gone through the playoff system. Florida State's been in one time out of that group, and the inaugural one in 2014. But for the 27 seasons before that, both the dynasty era, the second dynasty era when James Coleman was in the backfield, and then that one season in 2013 when we dominated and won national title. So out of those 27 seasons, how many seasons did Florida State enter the bowl season in the top 4? 10 of them. There were 10 times where Florida State would have been in the playoff system. And James and I, we talked about it a little earlier, you would have expected more, but only 9 of those were during the dynasty era from 1987 to 2000. So let's dive into those real quick. So in 1987, Florida State would have been the 3 seed. They would have played the number 2 seed, Miami, who beat us 26-25 in the regular season. Meanwhile, the number 1 team was Oklahoma. They would have played the number 4 team, Syracuse. Everyone's favorite team, the Syracuse, formerly Orangemen at that time.
Who I believe tied Auburn in the Orange Bowl that year. Syracuse, yeah, no, Don McPherson.
No, Miami played Oklahoma. Miami beat Oklahoma for the national title in the Orange Bowl that year.
No, you weren't listening to me. I said Syracuse tied Auburn in the Sugar Bowl that year.
You said Orange Bowl.
Completely different. Okay.
You said Orange. It's fine. Moving on.
Okay.
All right. So
it was Syracuse Auburn though. Okay, go ahead. 1988.
So Syracuse, Oklahoma, Florida State, Miami that season. So then the next season, 1988, would have been 1. Florida State would have been the number 4 seed. They would have played the number 1 team and eventual national champions, Notre Dame. Meanwhile, number 2 would have also been Miami, and they would have played the number 3, West Virginia. Obviously, West Virginia played Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl that year. Florida State beat Auburn in the Sugar Bowl, and nobody cares about Miami. So,
okay, 1988.
So 88.
All right.
Then in 89, 90, and 91, we would have made it. 89, we entered the bowl season 5th. 90, we entered at 6th. 91, we entered 5th after 2 straight losses to Miami and Florida to end the regular season.
One caveat before you continue, Jason, of course, one caveat would be we don't know what a committee would be doing and looking at. We're just looking at AP voters.
Right. Just going by rankings. Correct. Yep. All right. So in 92, we would have been back in it. 92, we would have been the 3 seed taking on Alabama with their ferocious defense that ended up helping them win a national title. Meanwhile, number 1 entering would have been Miami taking on number 4 Texas A&M, the Fighting R.C. Slocums of back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. 93, obviously we won the national title that season, so we would have entered number 1. Florida State entered number 1. They would have taken on number 4 seed Notre Dame, who Notre Dame beat Florida State in the regular season that year. Number 2, Nebraska would have taken on number 3 West Virginia. Obviously, Nebraska, we beat in the Orange Bowl. West Virginia got dog stomped by Florida in the Sugar Bowl. So I think Florida State would have convincingly won that one. Obviously, we lost Notre Dame in the regular season, but I think we would have won a rematch there. 94, we were 7th entering the bowl season. 95, this one was interesting to me. We entered the bowl season 8th. We entered the bowl season 8th. We ended up beating Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl that year and jumped up to finish the season 5th to continue that top 5 streak. So that one's interesting. Then we went for 5 straight years, we would have been in the playoff. In 96, we would have been the number 1 team. We would have taken on Ohio State, who was the number 4. Meanwhile, number 2, Arizona State, would have taken on number 3, Florida. And that's why I always will say I hate Ohio State more than Miami, because Ohio State is the reason that Florida has 2 of their national titles. If Ohio State doesn't beat Arizona State in the Rose Bowl, Arizona State wins the national title and Florida doesn't. So thanks a lot to your Buckeyes for that one there, Mark. Sure.
Hey, that could have been corrected by the voters actually voting for Ohio State to win the national championship.
It also
because they all had 1 loss.
It also could have been corrected by us actually playing in the second half and not playing like ass. So that also could have been corrected there on that.
Yes.
One. 97, Michigan. Your favorite Michigan Wolverines, Mark, would have been number 1, taking on number 4 Florida State. Meanwhile, number 2 Nebraska would have taken on number 3 Tennessee. Obviously, those 2 teams played in the Orange Bowl that season. In 98, Florida State would have been the 2 seed, once again taking on Ohio State, while number 1 Tennessee took on Kansas State. In '99,
That was Mike Bishop, Kansas State team, right?
Oh yeah,
Real good quarterback.
they lost to Drew Brees in a bowl game.
In the Alamo Bowl, I believe.
Yes, they did.
I'm correct. There you go. In '99, Florida State would come in number 1. Would have taken on
Wire to wire.
Yep, would have taken on number 4 Wisconsin, while number 2 Virginia Tech with Michael Vick would have taken on number 3 Nebraska.
That would be exciting to watch.
That would have been a good one right there.
That would have actually been probably one of the best playoffs. Like I just thinking of the players in those games. Yeah,
I will still say Michael Vick's performance in that Sugar Bowl was the best I've seen from an opposing quarterback in a game I've been to. The fact that he single-handedly is the reason Virginia Tech was even in that ball game. Michael Vick will always go down to me as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
I am loving listening to all these matchups and envisioning and thinking about, what actually happened versus what I think would have happened. Yeah.
It's like the playoffs are almost too little too late now.
Right.
It just seemed like it was way more parity back then. It would have been so much more exciting.
Oh, yeah. Now, 2000's one we've talked about before because I have said that entering that bowl season, Miami and Florida State were the 2 best teams. I understand why Oklahoma was number 1. They were undefeated. They deserved to be number 1. But that being said, the 2 best teams at that time, I believe, were Miami and Florida State. Oklahoma at number 1 would have played Washington at number 4. Meanwhile, Miami and Florida State, in an epic rematch of what was Wide Right 3 that year, would have played in the 2-3 game. I sincerely believe that, I sincerely believe that if Marvin Minis plays in that Orange Bowl, Florida State beats Oklahoma. I will stand by that until the day I die. I think Florida State at that time, that Florida State-Miami game, I've always said that Florida State-Miami 2000 game was the greatest college football game of all time. It had the most players ever drafted into the NFL if you combine both teams' rosters from that game. Miami jumps up to a big lead. Florida State comes back. It ends in a dramatic finish. I will always argue that. If they play again in a bowl, in a playoff system, I think that's phenomenal.
So wait a minute. I'm just making sure I hear this right. The Oklahoma team that shut out Florida State, I know they scored 2 points, but their offense didn't score a point.
Right.
If they would have played, Florida State would have won? Well, they did play.
If Marvin Minis had played that
game. Marvin Minis. Right. I got you. Snoop Minis didn't play.
Right.
I forgot that. Okay. I got you.
Shows up there.
Okay.
And remember, Oklahoma, how did Oklahoma get their touchdown?
It was a pick 6, right?
It was either pick 6 or fumble. I believe it was a defensive touchdown or it was a defense that set up.
Well, they were nothing but defense. Yeah, right, Rocky Kalmus and that crew.
Roy Williams was on that team.
Roy Williams. Yes.
Great defense, phenomenal defense. But I think at that point, the 2 teams that were playing the best on both sides of the ball were Miami and Florida State.
So before you continue, my stance on those situations, just like Alabama fans pouring in with all their comments about last season, losing Jamison Williams in the championship game and John Mechie in the playoffs, say we would have won the championship had we had those guys. I think they have every right to say that's their opinion, but they can't say there's no doubt we would have won, because Georgia, fair and square, injuries are part of the game, won the national championship fair and square. They've got the award. They've got it. But I have no issue with the fan base making a reasonable assumption to say, I believe this would have happened had this.
The only argument I have against the Alabama fans with that is that the way that Georgia beat them had nothing to do with finesse, had everything to do with straight brawn. I've seen 5 wides, but I've never seen 4 tight ends in a game before. They literally lined up, played old school football, and just punched you in the mouth. And that's how they beat you. And then their defense stepped to the occasion and stopped you. Now, granted, it's not taking away. Those wide receivers at Alabama were amazing. I'm just thinking about how Alabama's defense, for the first time in a while, looked like a group of 5 defense. And it's a Georgia. And it was just crazy. It was just how much more physical Georgia was than Alabama in the trenches. That'd be my only retort.
I got you. The reason I make that allowance is those backup wide receivers really let Bryce Young down. They had some big drops in that game, like huge. So the play or 2 just prior to Bryce Young, and yes, we'll get back to Florida State, everybody. prior to Bryce Young throwing the pick six that lost the game. So, understand Bama had a lead until like 4 minutes left in the game. They come down the field after Stetson Bennett leads the touchdown drive to take the lead. Bryce Young's throwing darts. He throws one right in, I think, Ja'Cory Brooks' breadbasket, which would have put them back up. He drops it. Next play, he throws the pick six. Like they dropped some big balls in that game, guys that would not have been targeted otherwise. So that's why one concession to Alabama fans who gripe and complain and moan, but fair and square, Georgia won. Okay, back to FSU.
So then after a 12-season hiatus that included during James's time there us being ranked 16th, 9th, 17th, and 22nd entering the bowl games, which for those people who love to talk about the letdown decade, it was a letdown half decade because Florida State entered the bowl season ranked in 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, and 2005. So let's call it the lost half decade, not that lost decade. So then it goes until 2013 when Florida State enters as the number one team in the country after dominating through the regular season. They would have taken on Michigan State, who would come in as the 4 seed. Meanwhile, the 2-3 would have been an Iron Bowl rematch, Auburn and Alabama. Which had surprised me a little bit that Alabama, I mean, I get it, but Alabama had dropped just from 1 to 3. I understand that, but with that being said, I feel like that would have set up for an Alabama getting their payback over Auburn.
Well, I absolutely believe Alabama was the better team. Auburn had all sorts of things working for them that year. The Georgia win, balls getting deflected off guys' chests for touchdowns. And,
Right.
Of course, they made it happen. So all credit to Auburn. And they took Florida State to the last 13 seconds of the game. So, shoot, they came that close to winning a national championship. So it's not like they didn't have a great team with talent. But, to see Florida State and Alabama in that game at the Rose Bowl, that would have been pretty epic.
That would have been good.
So if you look at these 10, so we're saying 10 times in the playoff, 3 of them were times we had won the national title. I don't think we're arguing that in a playoff system that any team would have beaten Florida State in either 93, 99, or 2013. I think Florida State wins the title those seasons. But which one of those seasons, start with Mark, do you think Florida State would have had the best shot at being a national champion?
Oh, man, I would love to see all that in writing in front of me. I think there were all sorts of years where Florida State had a really good shot. Oh, my goodness. To see Florida State Miami rematch in some of those late 80s, early 90s situations. That's not helping me. I appreciate the effort, but I can't give you one specific year where Florida State. I just think that, we really missed out as college football fans because we needed to see those teams on the field against each other.
For the record, I still think the playoffs are a joke. I think the playoff system is a joke. I think it's an
invitational.
It's an invitational tournament by your former employer. That's all it is right there. So,
I think if the BCS was just around, I think there's a lot of other factors that come into play with that list, and even now it hindered us a little bit more when I played because your strength of schedule came into play. And the year that we had the best chance when I played was my sophomore year, and we don't choke against Clemson. We're playing. Wait a minute, no, excuse me, my bad. We don't choke against. No, it was Clemson. Yeah, we choked against Clemson that year, and we played in the national championship. It's as simple as that. And then my junior year, we don't choke against Maryland. That Florida game means a little bit more. And then we probably play in the national championship as well. But strength of schedule, when you look at what Florida State was going up against in those 80 in that 80 run before we went to the ACC, people forget we joined the ACC because they were only giving national championship nods to people who were in a conference, and it just wasn't right. I think one year we basically played an SEC schedule. If I remember correctly, because it was a retort when people said that Bobby was afraid of the SEC. When one year we played LSU, Florida, Auburn, and South Carolina.
1990.
So and you know how many of those teams we beat? All of them. So we technically won the SEC that year. Or we should have played in the SEC championship as well. So there's no fear, and Bobby having that road warrior mentality is kind of what should have given us a stronger strength of schedule, which should have weighed more. But it's also probably what kept us out because the schedule was so damn tough. Imagine how many national championships Bobby is in if he takes Miami out and plays a directional sport. And during those times, Miami and Florida, like we found when Florida resurged, because a lot of Florida fans like to talk a lot of trash, but your program wasn't really relevant until Steve Spurrier came in. That's when you became relevant. So, but the 90s, Bobby played peak Miami and peak Florida with only one team having a slight downturn for a couple of years when Miami was on the probe, but they bounced back relatively quickly. So it's just interesting. It's amazing at how quick or how quickly we became a blue blood without really having any history. And just people just a generation is just was so used to us winning that now that we're having a downturn, it just seems foreign, which I think is a compliment to how good the old man was.
Looking at the list in front of me right now, you know, we've had the discussion about 2000 with Oklahoma. Obviously, there was the 3-year stretch in 98, 99, 2000 when we played in the national title game. You know, I think 98, you know, Tennessee, you're talking about T. Martin, Peerless Price. I think that Tennessee team was just a stacked ball club and just outplayed us in the field.
And we played with Rooster.
Right.
So we didn't have Chris Smith.
That was a stacked ball club. You know, 2000, I think Oklahoma's defense was phenomenal. The one that always bothers me, and this is why I will always say that I love Fred Taylor as a person. If you had to say who's your favorite person who played for a rival school, he would be my favorite person who played for the Florida Gators. But that 97 Florida State team going into Gainesville was we were just going to take care of Florida State. We were going to take care of Florida, go to the Orange Bowl, beat up on Nebraska, probably win the national title, or at least split it with Michigan, who was outplaying Washington State in the Rose Bowl. But you'll look at it right there. If you're saying Florida State would have played a Michigan team, that yes, I know they had Charles Woodson. Yes, I know they had guys. I think as a team versus team, I think Florida State's 97 team was better than Michigan's 97 team. And I think Florida State's 97 team was better than both Nebraska and Tennessee. So I think that year would have probably been Florida State's best championship team had there been a playoff system.
That would have been a ridiculous playoff.
No.
That'd have been a great playoff.
Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, Nebraska led by Scott Frost, our team, Sam Coward at linebacker, shout out to Jacksonville, talking about Travis Minor, Thad Busby at quarterback, Peter Warrick playing well as I believe it was a sophomore at that time, E.G. Green, Andre Cooper, like that was a stacked group right there. Andre Wadsworth on the defensive line, arguably the worst draft pick we've ever had.
Highest draft pick until Jameis too, and he was a walk-on.
He lived up to those potentials. I know injuries, I get it.
Now the funniest thing is at pro day my sophomore year, the scout who gave the report for Andre Wadsworth was looking at Greg Jones. He said, "I'll never turn in the first round grade for a Florida State guy." I'm shocked I still have my job. It was funny, man.
That was a bad one.
No, all of those, aside from a sprinkling of West Virginia, no offense, Mountaineer fans, that I don't think that they were quite up to the task. To Jason's point, they got drubbed by Florida, I believe 41-6 in the Sugar Bowl that year. You're talking all of those are a lot of Nebraskas and Miamis and Ohio States. And they would have been epic.
Literally, West Virginia's in here twice. Syracuse is in here once. Virginia Tech once for their 99 season, Arizona State, Kansas State. So maybe like 5 or 6 teams that aren't a big, traditional powerhouse program.
Yeah. And not that those individual teams could not have competed those years. I'm not saying that. It's possible, certainly. They were really good.
Also looking, Miami's in here 3 times, and Florida's only in here once. This would be 4 times for Miami, only once for Florida. So